So welcome to Brookline Booksmith's author event series. My name is Alex Schaffner. I'm the events director for the store, and it is a pleasure to welcome all of you to tonight's launch for Brighter Than the Moon, with author David Valdes conversing with Sara Farizan. Yes, it's good to clap at that point, so feel free to do it once more very loudly.
Usually I'm the one to fish, but that was very good.
I learned from you, Sara. I learned from you. I'd like to begin tonight by saying thank all of you for sharing your evening with us. Brookline Booksmith is an independent bookstore, a community bookstore. We've been here in Coolidge Corner since 1961, and it is entirely because of dedicated, supportive readers like you. So thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for being here tonight. If you haven't picked up your pre-ordered book, wait, all of you had. Good job, guys. If you are still hoping to buy one or multiple copies, we do have those available, plus some copies of Sara's books up at the back counter.
I can just tell you what happens.
And then you should be so excited that you buy them. So, yes, we're going to have those at the end. And also at the end, David will be signing. So, get ready for it.
Books, not body parts.
It's good to set the rules at the beginning before it's too late. Many thanks to Sara Farizan for moderating tonight's event. Sara has been to the Booksmith many times and is always a welcome presence.
Thanks.
She's the author of several books for young adults, including Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel, Here to Stay, and Dead Flip. She also knows how to crush a conversation, so thank you for being here to do that.
Well, we'll see, won't we? It's a new crowd. You're all like, I don't know about her. We'll see. Yeah.
Tonight it is so exciting to welcome into the world Brighter Than the Moon with its author, David Valdes. David has written a number of books for adults and teens, including A Little Fruitcake, The Rhinestone Sisterhood, Spin Me Right Round, and the upcoming novel, Finding My Elf. He has additionally written 2 plays and is an essayist who's been published in numerous prestigious outlets. As he says, as a gay Cuban American and dad in a multi-ethnic family, intersectionality is my jam. David's newest novel is a warm and empathetic story about 3 teenagers, Jonas, Shani, and Ash. It is about finding love in modern spaces and letting fear turn into lies and lies turn into big problems. It's about figuring out who you are and finding out if anyone will come along with you for the ride. It's about finding your place and being brave enough to get there. I'm thrilled for David to share it with us tonight. So please join me in welcoming David Valdes and Sara Farizan.
Thank you all for being here. David, congratulations. Brighter Than the Moon is set during the holidays, Christmas, and New Year's. So I brought you a little gift. You don't have to wear it because your hair looks great. But if you would like to place it here, do whatever you like.
I think that's a good call. Thank you.
So congratulations. I was wondering, since this book is out today, correct? You are here for the launch. It is, as of today, out into the world. One, how does it feel to do a live in-person event?
It is so lovely to be back. It has been a long time.
Yes.
So this is delightful.
Some things have happened. We don't need to get into those things. We've had enough. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind reading a piece from your new book, Brighter Than the Moon.
What a surprise request. I think I would be happy to. I'm going to read you a couple of little excerpts to introduce you to the 3 main characters of the book, who are Shani, Jonas, and Ash. And what you should know before this excerpt starts. I'll be switching back and forth between Jonas and Shani, who have been chatting for a long time online, and Jonas is trying desperately to work up his nerve to ask her out. What he's actually trying to ask her is to be his girlfriend. 9:28. He takes his spot on the couch with what will pass for dinner, 2 Pop-Tarts, a food his foster mother, Foma, always refused to buy. The last time he'd asked her, she'd made him read an article titled 15 Unhealthiest Foods. How were Pop-Tarts number 1? And did she bookmark it just to get him? Buying his own groceries now means freedom of choice and more Pop-Tarts, though a lot of the time it also means he's hungry sooner after eating than he should be. He propped up his iPad, which cost him 2 years of savings. Time to call. Keep it simple, keep it simple. Will you be my girlfriend? He always makes the call from the exact same space. He props his phone on the shipping crate turned coffee table so that it will frame the upper half of the futon and the wall behind, which he has covered with a cloth photo backdrop of a Hawaiian beach that he found at Boomerang, his favorite thrift shop. He really wants to paint a mural, but renters can't be choosers, so this beach scene has to do, and it does at least remind him of his and Foma's old place. On camera, the backdrop looks exactly like it did the first time Shawnee saw it. Her words then were, "This is some serious white boy Margaritaville crap." She doesn't sugarcoat anything. She has no idea that he's moved. The backdrop keeps him from needing to explain why he had to. Quickly, he slips on the color block hoodie she got him for his birthday back in October. Most of the time, the new apartment is cold, the windows barely seal, and he can't control the thermostat. It's a far cry from the old place, which is constantly hot and pretty much required staying half-dressed. If Shawnee noticed that he used to show up on screen in tank tops and is now always bundled up, she hasn't commented on it. Though they've been talking for months, he only realized a week or two ago that he felt differently about her than anyone else. It started with this astrology app she downloaded, in which she said was scarily accurate. When he told her he was a Libra, she ran his birth date and time through the app, and some of what came out was right on the money. So they kept going. They checked the birthdays of people they knew. After that, they started guessing the signs of famous people. Both guessed correctly that Sissa is a Scorpio. And then they moved on to people who weren't real at all. Everyone in the cast of Squid Game, the cast of Stranger Things, all of the Avengers. By the time they started assigning astrological signs to anime series, Shawnee's idea, it was 3 a.m., and Jonas knew 2 things. They had to hang up, and it was the most he'd ever talked to anyone in his life. He was giddy. Wearing the birthday hoodie, then, is intentional. Will she notice? She does. Nice fit. Thanks, he grins. The person who gave it to me has great taste. But then he can't think of anything else to say. Their conversation always flows so easily. Now he's tripping up over the unspoken thing. Just say it. Just say it. He almost misses her question. How far'd you get in Tomoe, girls? Oh, I'm almost caught up. The part with the new guy kisses the policeman. He smiles at the memory. It was a perfect scene. Shawnee's voice takes on the warm pleasure that only good anime brings out. I shipped them from the policeman's first scene. If he was into girls, he'd be my next boyfriend. Jonas grins. Anime boyfriend, you mean? Real boys can't keep up. Not even me? He blurts out too soon, without a thought. You're okay. She smirks in a way that means he's more than okay. I think you're okay too. A look in her eyes says the sudden awkwardness has surprised her, so he rushes on, half pleading, trying to keep it light. I know I'm not a demon slayer or anything, but I really like you, and I kind of thought you were into it, and Shawnee's smile, which she does not deploy lightly for most people, spreads wide across her face, pushing her cheeks up, her eyes narrowing as they glow. I am into it. So, Jonas waits for her to say more, but nothing comes. So, is that a yes? Was there a question? Damn it, he hasn't even asked. Why is it so hard to say want to be my girlfriend? Shawnee raises an eyebrow. Are you trying to ask me out? It's both embarrassing and sheer relief that she said it for him. Yes, I was. I am. God, he sounds like an idiot. Okay. His heart pounds. He feels like jumping up and down. Really? You heard me. Where are we finna go? Damn it, she thinks he wants to go on a date. Of course she does. He's such a moron, he didn't even ask the right question. She's waiting and he has no answer because he's not ready to meet her. They can't meet. Because if they meet, she'll know. Shawnee. Boy, all hyped up to ask when doesn't even have a plan. But he looks so nervous now she can't help but let him off the hook. You want me to pick? I guess. I meant, well, he's kind of red-faced for someone his color. What's he tripping about? And then it hits her. You were asking me out? He doesn't respond, but she can see it in his eyes. We haven't even gone on a date. He palms his forehead like a living emoji. I kind of thought we'd already had a lot of dates online. He can hardly look at the camera, and she feels a little bad for making him sweat it. But it's weird, too. He went straight to girlfriend? People date online all the time, but not so much ones who live 6 miles from each other. She imagines saying yes. She wants to say yes, but something holds her back. It's not his fault. There's history he doesn't know. She could explain, but she keeps her tone light. How do I even know you're for real? Maybe you're like some baby-faced 22-year-old, so this is illegal, or you're some AI deal like a Japanese sex robot. Jonas blushes, like he does anytime she brings up sex. She forces a smile. I'm just playing. Is she, though? A seed of doubt has planted itself in her mind, little root hairs burrowing down into her excitement. I know how to solve this problem. Me being a sex robot? Time for a real date. Live. Never in a million years would it have occurred to her that she'd have to define real. Oh! For a moment it sounds like he's going to complete that with no, but the last second O becomes okay. Okay? Boy doesn't sound very excited. Her warning bells are ringing, but she can't make everything about the past. You free Sunday? His voice comes out strangled. For what? Brain surgery. He's trying to be funny, but it doesn't feel funny. Our first date. It's Christmas Eve, which is also my birthday. I know I've been working in your present. That's more like it. Until he adds, but it's a big day in my house. She can't actually picture what that means for him. He's never mentioned his dad, even in passing, and she's only seen his mom, a short black woman with white snow caps dotting tight curls, one time months ago stepping into the frame before he shooed her away. Single parents can make a big deal of everything she knows firsthand, so maybe it's true when he says, I mean, we have these traditions, and it's like our favorite day of the year. More than Christmas? Christmas doesn't even come close. Okay then, I'll come Christmas instead. It takes him a second to react. The giveaway is not his one-word answer, great! But the way he says it, like someone had to slap his back for him to croak out a reply. Really? Jonas, it's a nightmare. She wants to meet this weekend. He's not close to ready, but she's already making plans suggesting the Ivies doing holiday matinees. Jonas feels a flicker of panic. They are? Cool. But do you really want your dad to be alone on Christmas? It's just a couple of hours. I'm just saying, if all I had was one kid and she went to see her boyfriend on Christmas, so now you think you're my boyfriend? I thought, I did just ask. Is it panic or his voice ratcheting up higher? Ask me again when you see me. Her smile is sweet, but her eyes are narrow, and the disconnect scares him a little. I can't wait to, he gulps. But Christmas? I mean, you know. She knows he's right. Christmas is a big ask, yet his reluctance makes her want to press him. He's either in the grip of a massive wedgie, or he's terrified of her. And why would he be? Her emotional radar is going off, and it's completely fair. She's been catfished twice. Twice. Freshman year, she wasn't meeting a lot of guys in health sciences, and the one she did meet, the one that had a fire truck obsession that bordered on a fetish, she found him on Kick. It was easy to turn off the age settings then. It seemed great till a cute boy she'd been chatting with started asking for money. The second guy turned out to be her dad's age, but that has nothing to do with Jonas. She never FaceTimed those guys. She didn't fall asleep with her head on the phone talking to them. They didn't draw her pictures or start watching the shows she liked. They weren't him. Yet something's up. He just asked her to be his girlfriend while obviously not wanting to meet her. There can only be one explanation. He must be lying. About what? She has no idea. Maybe she ought to just go off, tell him that she sees right through him, but she bites her lip. What if she's imagining it? It's not his fault she's so paranoid. He might mean it, all of it. She tries to play it cool. I hear you. Are you sure? 'Cause I feel bad. We can wait. I'm not going anywhere. She tosses a smile like a rope to a drowning man. It's going to be brick anyway. They're saying polar vortex. You're the best. Jonas smiles his real smile, the one that tugs up just at one corner like he's about to tell a joke. She wants to believe he means it. Jonas. When Shawnee hangs up, Jonas sits back on the futon. The snow continues to pile up outside, flakes thick enough to throw shadows on the wall. He stares at the pattern. He'd seen quite clearly how her face changed, the dimming of the electricity that she always has. She's weirded out, maybe even mad. How has he managed to screw this up so badly? It was ridiculous to think that they could stay online forever. Had he really believed it was possible? Or maybe he was just in denial. Time to face the facts. Meeting Shawnee is inevitable. Maybe it'll go okay. Once she can look right into his eyes, the stuff he left out won't matter. Maybe she'll understand. Maybe she'll understand. Maybe she'll understand. He repeats this to himself until it almost sounds believable. Shawnee. Shawnee paces around the studio, trying to figure out just what happened. Jonas has always had the low-key chill vibe, nothing flashy, no big emotions. So now he's all big smile and you're the best, and that more than anything tells her something's not right. What do you do when you think someone's hiding something from you? And not just anyone, but the guy you look forward to talking to every single day. How do you know if he's telling you the truth? She needs to call an expert, someone good at manipulation, a pro at digging dirt, unafraid to bruise a few feelings along the way. She needs the one person she knows who thinks the ends justify the means every single time. She needs Ash. And I'm going to skip ahead a little to introduce you to Ash. Ashok. Ash's dad says the name 1,000 times a day. Raj Patel says this personalizes conversation, a tactic which has made him very successful, but sometimes Ash wants to scream, "Girl, I know who you're talking to." But that would lead to a heart-to-heart about how disrespect of others is a form of hostility that springs from the well of one's own self-doubt. There's a whole chapter on this in his dad's latest book. If he has to hear it out loud, Ash will combust. What? He likes to keep his replies neutral, as he never knows what kind of amusement park ride their conversation will be. The kind that loops around and around, or one with scary drops. I went on the Hammer, and guess what I saw? Supposedly, St. Joseph's Prep's academic portal is named after a tool because Jesus was a carpenter. But Ash thinks they call it the Hammer so parents can continually pound their kids with it. Ms. Lim is a fascist. She takes off point if your work isn't in the corny little wheelbarrow the moment the bell rings. I swear my journals were in that thing before end of class. Your journals were late too? Raj's brown eyes widen. Ash kicks himself for not following his own rule of never saying anything to parents he doesn't have to. If his dad's issue is not the journals, Ash has preemptively ratted himself out for something Raj isn't yet pissed about. Raj taps at his Apple Watch, squints. B- in American history. I shock you have never had less than a 94% in history. What topic could be so challenging that your grade would drop by 10%? Honestly, Ash doesn't know. He can't remember studying for the last test, but he also never does. He can just read the material once and summon up the visual in his mind by scrolling to wherever the info is on the page. But he also doesn't recall having any panicky, holy shit am I being punked moments. And if a lot of kids had tanked the test, there would have been messages about it in St. Blows, the private school chat. He's not lying when he says, I'm pretty sure I did okay. Maybe it's an error. You're a junior, Ashok. There's not time for casual error, but serious growth. Raj looks like he might cry or hug Ash or both, which would be very on brand for an inspirational speaker who helps people tap into the power of their potential. Not my error, the teacher's. The bubble of Raj's gentleness is popped, and his type A side assumes control. It's always someone else's problem with you, Ashok. Disapproval settles onto his face like one of those cheap charcoal scrub masks. It isn't pretty. Okay, Raj, I hear you. Ash has been calling his parents Raj and Gloria since 6th grade, not just because he knows they hate it, but because it equalizes them, forcing them to recognize his maturity. He speaks to them like an adult, often using their own ridiculous therapeutic language. The more reasonable he sounds, the less they can dismiss him, and the less they dismiss him, the more he gets what he wants. They're blissfully unaware how little control over him they actually have, despite all that huffing and puffing. I'll look into it, Dad. Don't make me late for school to lecture me about academics. He wishes he had chill parents who just wanted him to find his bliss or whatever. Instead, he got the kind who expect model behavior, good grades, strict adherence to their values, blue state hearts, red state wallets, and a career path that starts in college and ends up on par with their own levels of achievement. It's not lost on him that they're classic immigrant parents out of a movie. Except neither of them is an immigrant. Gloria's parents left Cuba years before she was born, and she grew up in Maine, which seems pretty all-American to Ash, a sentiment he is only allowed to voice when she's up for re-election. Raj is actually a third-generation California whose family left India so long ago that Gandhi was still just a lawyer who couldn't get a job. Ash's aunties both think it's hilarious that Raj, birth name Roger because his mother loved James Bond movies, has made a career off his mystic Indian identity when he spent all of his 80s channeling the Brat Pack. Is this an old person thing? You hit a certain age and boom, you magically rediscover culture? The parental bark is worse than its bite. When push comes to shove, he's all they have, and he knows it. He endures the occasional scolding with a martyr's grace, because the same love that spawns their concern also yields things like a shiny new Jaguar, annual beach vacations, and a wardrobe no one in this town can keep up with. But thank God, Curious Liquids, his favorite coffee shop, is on the way to St. Joe's, because it gives him an escape from morning conversations with his parents, most days.
Thank you, David. So we've got a great trio here in Brighter Than the Moon, and I wanted to know, because they're all they have their own lives, they're very three-dimensional, fleshed out. I wanted to know if you started with one of the characters' voices and then figured out the two people that would balance that voice out. If you knew that it was going to be a sort of love triangle story.
It started actually with Jonas and Shawnee both.
Okay.
So there's a line in the book where Jonas says he doesn't know if he's mixed or just mixed up, which is a line that reflects a lot of my life growing up, right? In Maine, too Cuban to be white. In Miami, too white to be Cuban. And so I knew that I wanted to write a book about mixed identity as part of the character's story, even though that's not the plot. So I knew that I started that with Jonas, but then I was also thinking about who would Jonas be talking to? Who would share his experience? Where would Jonas bond? And I drew a lot of Shawnee from my own daughter and her friends. And so I had the two of them, but I didn't know what the story was going to be. I knew that there was going to be a disconnect between the perfect lives they were leading online and their messier real lives. But until Ash entered my mind, I didn't know what the story was going to be. And Ash came about. He's very much inspired by a friend of mine, and that, like all of my characters, a conflation of multiple people, and you know.
Are some in this room right now?
No.
And does your daughter and her friends get a commission for?
I would like to remind you that I paid you.
Oh, you did.
I did, yeah. That's
Oh, okay.
So my daughter was one of the cultural competency readers for the book.
Okay, cool, good. So that's great.
Friends don't know anything about it.
Oh no! And this is recording. Is that so? You could send the link to your friends.
I'm fairly certain none of them are watching a live stream of a book talk tonight. I'm gonna roll the dice on that.
It gets uploaded to YouTube. You can share it at your will. So, which I encourage you all to purchase a copy of Brighter Than the Moon to support young people and their reading sensitively of texts. So the three, it's I feel like, did you know who the characters were first and then the plot took shape? And does your playwriting kind of inform your novel writing?
So the characters always exist. The characters always exist first before I really get into the writing. I do a lot of background work and try to understand my characters, and I do things, and it's an exercise I do with my students. I do something called CSI bedroom. If you were to walk into their bedroom, if the police were to walk into their bedroom because they were
With the
missing,
black light or without?
what would they see? You know, I haven't really done that.
Yeah,
That's,
good,
you know.
because you still want to teach there. Don't worry about it, young person.
Yes. So I do a lot of work in the characters, and it's a funny quirk of mine. I can't write until I can draw them.
Okay.
And when I can draw them, then I know I'm ready to write them.
Oh.
So once I had all three characters, I knew pretty early on that there would be secret keeping, and that Shawnee, as a defensive tactic, would draw in Ash to suss things out. But I truly, in this case, I always have ideas of where things can go, and I do mapping, and I just try to stay up, but I truly did not know how it was going to end.
Yeah, I didn't see the ending coming either.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spoil it for you,
Thank you.
but you won't, I don't think. And you'll be like, oh, okay, feeling good about that, I think.
I hope so, yeah.
Yes.
I feel good about it. It's a great
Serious.
ending.
Yeah. Starts the new year with a bang. And this is set so much in holidays, so if you're feeling a little nostalgic for last week and the week before, it's great to get back in. This book is so Boston. It is so Massachusetts. There's a lot of first night. There's the town of Arlemont, which I have a feeling is Arlington and Belmont put together. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I put the names of the towns together.
Yes.
But that was just so people wouldn't accuse me of making it all Arlington.
Yes. And the coffee shop, liquid,
Curious
liquids, which, what a name.
That is actually stolen from a Boston coffee shop. From
Really?
Back in the day,
Wow.
That was, if you were alternative in Boston, you knew Curious Liquids.
Okay.
That was the cool place. But then I think it's a bank now or something.
As they all are. Does anyone remember a Curious Liquids? No?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Because that would seem like a place I'd want to go. It's like, it's hard to find, like, I mean, nothing wrong with a Cafe Nero or Starbucks or something, but it's hard to find like a fun, cool place that you can sit and hang.
That you can sit and hang for a long time.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, honestly, like I took the name from Curious Liquids, but it's got a lot of its DNA is Diesel Cafe in Davis Square.
Oh, okay. Cool. Visit if you can. So also in this story, a lot of it is the three characters spend a lot of time online in different mediums.
Mm-hmm.
So Shawnee has a YouTube channel where she talks about hair care and beauty and confidence and that sort of thing. Jonas is less visible but does a lot of art and makes money getting commissions from art on Instagram. And Ash is a TikToker, which to me, that is a talent that I don't have or understand.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I'd like to, because it seems that,
As young adult authors, they
Yes.
keep telling us we have to be on TikTok.
yes.
If you follow me on TikTok, you see I have the 11 posts in 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah.
I started a few months ago and it's not for me. I have one just in case, like maybe I'll be really inspiring one day. I don't like it. Is that fair to say? I'm glad people do. I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, and I'm glad that people experience joy. But it makes me sad. And I'm already sad. So I don't want to exacerbate it. But that these are young people that feel young, not just because they're online, but what they're presenting online. And was that a theme that you were really, because I know the younger generation is so online all the time, even when they're not like performing, it's still a form of communication. You have Snapchat, like all kinds of other stuff that we're so on our phone or computers. So is that something that you were just wanting to talk about, like what we present online, especially if all these characters are hiding stuff from each other and within themselves? And what was your way into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I'm online a lot too, right? So I can't throw stones, but it is something that I've seen with my daughter, with my students, absolutely, and students who've moved to expecting communication that way, right? Really seeing that is so much a core of the fabric of life. You couldn't really write about this time without including social media because it would be false, really, unless you were, I don't know, Kimmy Schmidt, you were like, in a bunker. But just that whole idea of curation and life curation, right? How you get to shape how people see you, who you are, what you appear to be. And the thing with Jonas, there's a line, I don't know if it's still in the book, I didn't memorize it, but one of the starter lines of the book originally was, is it catfishing if you mean it? Right? Because there's also a way in which sometimes the person that you curate online and that you present is true in its way and true to you and feels true and seems true, but that doesn't necessarily make it factually true. And we live in a time that's pretty unforgiving about what you say versus who you are, what you say, period, right? And so
Yeah, you have to be careful.
You do, absolutely. And so, I want people to read this book and see the choices that the characters make, some of which are abjectly bad choices, and still really be like, oh, I feel that.
Yeah. And Shawnee is interesting too in that she, I feel like, is working all the time. Shawnee is working all the time. Jonas is working a lot. But it has split time between his family issues and that. And Ash doesn't have to, Ash does other work like YouTubing or TikToking, excuse me, and having to do academic work and that sort of thing. But all three of them have pretty different socioeconomic backgrounds and yet managed to form a group. Was that something that you sometimes I feel in young adult and kid lit there isn't really too much exploration about like there's the in between, or there's a very affluent, and there isn't so much about maybe making ends meet.
Yeah, and that was really important to me.
Yeah.
So I grew up on welfare. I started, my first job, like that I needed the money for was like 15, right? It was really important to me that Jonas be somebody that really is scraping by. And there are experiences of Jonas that are taken from my own life, and I won't spoil, but there's
No spoilers. You're gonna read it tonight, right? And then you can ask. Yeah.
but there's I'll frame it this way. There's a moment that Jonas kind of the first time understands he's poor, which is something that literally happened exactly to me.
Wow.
That whole scene. And so it was really important to me to look at that and to look at how there's a way in which, he and Shawnee, who is, working class, how they bond over that. And then for Ash just wades into every space confidently because he hasn't had to examine the cost of anything, really. So there's a moment where they're a little bit bonding over class, and that's really off-putting to Ash, like, why are they doing that, right? But they at bottom they're all still 17 and trying to like figure things out. Because one of the main themes of the book is that junior year into senior year is such a time where everybody is asking for definitions. What are you going to be? Who are you going to be? Where are you going to go? And it's, so there's the college thing, that top piece that is asked all the time, but then there's a lot of pressure, especially because Gen Z is so open and talking about things as to, are you gay? Are you straight? Are you bi? Are you pan? And all this identity stuff. And so you're watching 3 kids work this all out in real time.
And also not having a definite answer. Like, they are questioning stuff that they didn't think they would question, which I thought was really interesting. There were moments where I was like, I didn't see it going a certain way, or, and then I felt terrible because I'm like, they're young. They're supposed to, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Were you so sure of yourself at 17? I don't know. I mean, I don't know, kind of.
I mean,
but
I think everybody's different, right?
Yeah.
I was, on the Kinsey scale of 1 to 6, I was an 11. So that was perfectly clear to me. I was not unsure about that part of my life. But but it was also a very different time. Things were also on a binary, and kids today don't feel as constrained by that, or many kids don't. I say this, we're in a bubble, right? Mm-hmm. There are places where people are banning productions of plays and banning books for any discussion of any of this. Mm-hmm. This book, oh my God, if any of the wrong people get their hands on this book, the characters are literally across the book gay, straight, bi, pan, NB, cis, trans.
The whole rainbow.
Right, like people's heads are going to explode.
A bag of Skittles in one novel.
But the thing is, it's partly some of those definitions are applying to single people, because, one of the things, for a while I wrote an advice column for Medium about youth and about parenting, and one of the things I kept saying to parents was, your kid may say they're this or that, and then it could change, and that's a real thing. Yeah. Right? Like, you have to roll with it. Like, you have to be okay with evolutions and changes, and that's one of the things that they're all wrestling with.
Yeah. And Jonas bonds with Ash a lot about Marvel characters. Jonas bonds a lot with Shawnee over anime characters. How much research did you put into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well as anime? And please bullet point your answers.
So I'm a movie whore. I love movies of all kinds. I've seen all the Marvel movies, including some terrible ones.
All of them? All of them? Morbius, you saw that?
Was that a Marvel movie? No,
that's with Jared Leto, and he's a vampire, but you're not sure.
I thought that was DC.
No, sacrilege. Yes.
Oh no! I didn't see that. I'm a Thor Ragnarok person.
I can tell from the novel. There's a lot of Thor.
Yeah. So yeah, so a lot of that on my own, and then years of watching anime with my daughter. Lots of
Is
Attack
there a
on
commission
Titan.
for that also?
I pay the cable. bill.
Okay. So access to film is.
Yeah.
And the anime, I didn't know. I've heard of Tomoe.
So
But-
I made that up.
Oh.
It's a real. So so tomoe are these like Japanese like head slicing warrior women. So I made up a TV show, an anime
Got it.
series
Okay.
that has a black girl lead, which is still pretty rare in Japanese anime.
Okay.
And that's so Shani is really pumped because there's this character, so she's obsessed with the tomoe girls
Okay. Cool.
who don't exist,
But they should.
but they should.
That
So
you
maybe
could-
somebody reading this will have.
You
an
could
idea.
write that yourself.
Sure.
Yeah. What are some other things? I want to open it up to questions, but let me think what else that I want to know. The parents in this book, I think sometimes YA books can forfeit parents. I know in Dead Flip, parents didn't spend too much time there. But I like writing them sometimes. The parents here, they have screen time or page time, as it were. And some of it is funny and silly, but some of it is really heartfelt.
Mhm.
And I don't know, what did you think of having the parents that you wrote? And you said earlier that people are an amalgamation of lots
Right.
of, but they all had different parenting styles. And
Right.
was that a deliberate kind of choice about how a kid grows up determines who they may or may not be?
Yeah, absolutely. There are parents present in every story. One each in Jonas and Shani's stories. And as somebody who single parented for a long time, it's very important to me to have a father-daughter bond. But Raj and Gloria, Ash's parents, are the first set of parents in anything I've ever written. Because I was raised by my mom, I literally never think about or write an actual married couple parent dynamic.
How was that this time?
So it was interesting and it was fun. It was fun because rich parents in a book can often just be villainous, right? And they're not villainous. They're annoyed with their desperately taxing child.
And he's the only one.
And he's the only one, right? And I can see why, for them it would be, it would be taxing. I can see why for him they would be taxing. But it was actually really fun to write that dynamic and to write a character who's so sure that he has his parents on a short leash.
They have a scene, I don't want to again spoil things, but the way that they have a family meeting and discussion was a lot of fun to read. And I hope you have fun tonight or whenever you decide to read it. Brighter Than the Moon, available from Brookline Booksmith, your favorite local independent bookstore in the greater Boston area. Also available online. Brighter Than the Moon. Brookline Booksmith. You can also shop bookshop.org/Brookline Booksmith for any of your purchases.
I'm gonna write new books just for Sarah to help conversations. I think that's pretty clear.
Well, I think we're going to open up for audience questions. Does that sound good to you? I mean, it's
They
up
look
to you. You
dicey.
can say no.
They look dicey,
I mean, it's
but-
your night.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have any audience questions? Feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep going. And do we need that? I don't think so. Yes, Mr. Halperin, my high school drama teacher in the back. Hi.
Yay!
How do you know and when do you know and how do you decide what you're right, like whether these characters were going to be in a play or a book, and how does that play out?
So
The
that
question is, how do you know where these characters will end up in a play or a book or whatever medium that David's done it all? So how do you decide?
yeah. So the bio before was almost right about the plays. I have written 27 plays. So there's just a number missing, right? I think it might have said. I think the bio might have said 24, and somehow the dozen got dropped. Yeah, I've been writing plays longer than books. I'm sorry.
Oh,
I I will double check that.
Check
I
with
will
your editor.
like 2 plays. Wow. Yeah, those must have been precious plays and small and faint.
They were
So-
200 hours each.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, there almost is never any question at all. It is when ideas hit me, they hit me fully as a player book, for sure. When I have an idea, I know what it is. Where the two things, where being a playwright helps me is that it makes me good at dialogue, for sure. They're just very different mediums. With a play, I'm thinking very much about bodies moving through space and how to actually, how the audience interaction with that space will feel and be. With a book, I can have a much wider sort of cinematic palette, right? I can take them to all kinds of places, doing all kinds of things, and I can have an omniscient narrator. And this particular book is written in 3 third-person voices.
That was a great question by a great man. Thank you. I don't know the rest of you, so. But I'm sure your questions are great. Yes.
Also on the playwriting versus novel writing angle, obviously playwriting, there's a lot of collaboration. You have actors, directors, dramaturgs. For a novel, a lot of it is just on you. Can you talk about the differences in the writing process for you? Kind of anything that comes up.
The question is writing process in a play. It's very collaborative with dramaturgs, actors, etc. Novel, you're on your own. Compare and contrast for those on the internet that you will send to your friends. Yes.
And how much are you going to pay all of the friends in specific dollar amounts?
First, I would just like to say that question came from a novelist herself. What is the name of the book that comes out next year?
Red.
Red. And the first book was Since You've Been Gone?
The Chance You Won't Return.
The Chance You Won't Return. I knew it. It's so good. It's so good. You have to read it. Oh my gosh.
Also probably available at the Brookline Booksmith.
I forgot the question. What was it? So with playwriting, you're right. There's a whole team and you have these developmental steps, and that helps a lot. With writing a novel, especially a second novel, if this is the second book with Bloomsbury. The first book, like my agent and I massaged a lot before it went out to editors, and then we had the full editorial process, which is several rounds plus copy edits and proofreading, and at a certain point your eyes bleed. With a book like this, because there's no agent piece to it, they're just expecting you to turn in a draft. It's scary, for sure. It's, because you're sort of waiting in the woods a little bit, waiting in the woods, and these are younger kids. So, one of the things that I did early on as I was working on Shawnee, I did have Lily read it and kind of police it for things that sounded true or false, age-wise. I also, I'm a believer that books need to be intersectional and that we need more diverse literature, but I'm also a believer that you have to be thoughtful about what you're doing, right? And so when I write outside my experience, I bring in others to read. So when I choose to write about people, I write about characters that I have experience with, that cultures and people, lives that are in my world already. I'm not just an anthropologist from far away imagining upon people. But even so, it's still not my experience. So there is a secondary character in the book who has CP. I hired a young woman who is a CP activist to read that character, Milo, and to give me feedback. And it's so basic. It's crazy the things that you'll discover. She thought that I had the character down right and his attitude towards CP right and his sense of humor, and she's really excited about it. She had one really big question. I kept referring to his braces, and she's like, "Do you mean his arm crutches? Because braces are shoes." Oops. I had called them braces every single time, right? So, so I brought her in. I brought a young woman of color to read the book, aside from my daughter, so that it wasn't just the weight on Lily's shoulders. I had 2 trans readers involved. So, all of those people, I paid a small amount, like as an honorarium for helping, because also shouldn't be unpaid labor. So by the time that my editor got it, it had already had that work done. but this book had a bunch of edits and switched editors 2/3 of the way through the process. So right up until the proofreading edit, we were discovering that different changes and alignments had left surprises elsewhere. So it was a little bit booby trapped. So it was a sort of wild process, but it also was a process that ended last February. So I had to read the book this week. In case anybody asked questions I couldn't answer.
That's very good. Anybody else? Yes.
Like piggybacking off of that question, were there any edits in the process that that you kind of had to fight them about because of how much you consulted people for the intersectionality of it? Was there anything that you had to be like, no, this cannot happen, like you can't move that because this is what's true to the character?
There was definitely, I don't want to say too much, part of where the book goes, part of the finale, we pulled back on and then unpulled back on. I'll say that. Everybody in the whole process was so loving and so willing to go with it, with this book. This is a book that, tell your friends, encourage people to read it and to buy it. It's a much harder sell. My last book was Spin Me Right Round, which is a gay Back to the Future. Really easy to say. This is a book that is super queer. It's a Valentine to queer kids and mixed kids, but it's less easy poppy, easy to summarize in that way, but everybody committed to it. So, the editor that worked on the book the longest time was Allison Moore, and at Bloomsbury. Bloomsbury was just really, really lovely. And the editor that finished the book, Sara, everybody was really willing to go there. But there were definitely some questions. Sometimes in copy edits, you have an outside copy editor who will say, this is not true, or that you have to just push back, and it's like, I don't know what you know about these things, but I don't more than you. Occasionally you just have to. But there's a term that's still, reading it this week, that surprised me in the book, that one person along the way had me change a term. I had described a character as envy, and they asked me to change the spelling to enbi, because the character is both envy and bisexual. I did not know that existed, to be honest. I didn't know that was a term, I knew the practice, sure, but I didn't know the term. So that's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can take a note, sure, right? Still learn as you go. The other thing is, while working on this, one of the readers for trans representation pointed out how the characters' language and the characters' behaviors were all, well described, but the language of the book itself in places fell into a binary that I hadn't even noticed, right? Ways that, there were places that things really fell into this kind of heteronormative cliche in language at times that I just read right by.
Wow. Another great question. We have time for one or two more. You can let them rip. We've been talking, we know each other now. Don't be shy. You don't have any at all. I'll come up with more. Should I do that?
Yeah.
She seems capable of it.
I just really had a great time with Ash. Again, we don't want to spoil too much, but Foma, Jonas's foster mother, that's a relationship that I think is really the heart of the novel, the heart of the book, and one that, as the book goes on, has different layers and different unveiling of truths and that sort of thing. I know it's hard to write in a pandemic. I've done it. It's not easy. But there were a lot of surprising themes of grief in this novel. And I wanted to ask how that was for you, because it was hard for me.
I would say this, my close friends already know this about me, but if I am not writing, if I don't have a project going, I'm unwell. I'm so jangled. So I usually keep more than one going. I usually have a play and a book, or a revision and a first draft, a revision and a first draft going, right? So instead of being hard, writing it was relief. It was joyful. I was writing it, and especially I was writing it and finishing it during a very hard time in my life, and so this was something to lean into and to look toward. I think that the grief part that you're referencing in the book was kind of cathartic for me, and I'm a schmaltz ball, so when I read what you're talking about, this
Which
last
you'll
week.
know after you read Brighter Than the Moon, available at the Brookline Booksmith.
When I read that this past week, I cried, and I was like, "Am I allowed to cry at my own book? Is that like really narcissistic?"
It's your party. You can
Yeah,
cry.
I can cry. Yes, it's true. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yes. A question, yes.
I do have a question. So I know it's really popular to put the characters' faces on the cover, and YA Lit in particular. And I'm curious how the cover design process went for you, and how you felt when you got to see these characters for the first time.
So it's a funny thing because I'm at war on this topic, which is that I hate faces on a book, but I feel like it's really important for representation that there be faces on the book. So for both books, I've insisted on this, but so many like illustrations that I've seen, I don't like the way the faces look. So I'm really at war on this topic. But with this book, I said I wanted all three of them on the cover. Ash is mixed race Cuban Indian. Shani identifies as African American but is mixed race, and Jonas is mixed race but doesn't have a good full answer to that question. And it was really important to me that there be a love story, a love triangle featuring three kids of color, and that they be on the cover, right? So when I told them from the beginning, I said, that's what I want. And it's a challenge for them because they're having to squeeze a lot onto a cover. Also, I did suggest that because the book is building toward New Year's Eve, that I liked the idea of a nighttime palette. And so they gave me some original sketches. They let me choose the artist. I thought, the artist had a great vibe. I will say in the original draft of the cover, there was like a full body of Jonas in the middle and a little Shani and a little Ash. And I was like, what is that about, right? We can't make a book cover where the lightest skinned person is the focus and the other people are add-ons. That's not the whole, that's against the whole point of the book. And so I said they really need to be equal in size. We need to be able to see them. They were very responsive as we talked about, and for artistic reasons, there was a point where there was like Ash's face was cut in half, and it's like, nope, they all have to be present. We need to be able to see them. And then we had lots of discussion about adding like a skyline and having some lights, and eventually it came out, I think, really beautifully.
Well, you've been a wonderful crowd. Thank you for coming. David, you're a wonderful author. Thank you for
so
writing.
much, Sarah. You're a blast.
And please, let's all give it up before we purchase our books for David to sign right here. Please give a round of applause to yourself and to David for this wonderful evening.